Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and basically this video is about creating your own little mini CSS framework, because oftentimes I'm sure you probably use a similar workflow from project to project. So if you have sort of your own little mini framework, your own little mini sort of pre-CSS file that kind of does a lot of the initial stuff for you, like maybe how you style your buttons and whatnot, and if you set it up right, you should be able to fully customize it, fully customize the colors and whatnot in your secondary style sheet. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this project 1. And I'm going to make 3 files in it. So we're going to create an index.html. And then I'm going to create a, I'll call it basis, like it's basic, or your standard.css. This is your framework. And then your custom style.css, where you put all your custom code. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is let's link all this up. So let's create a boilerplate for HTML. We want to link the standard first. So standard.css, standard.css. Then we want to link our style.css. So this way, these styles apply first. And what we're going to do is we're going to use variables for everything. Okay, so if we use variables for anything, our secondary style sheet can then redefine those variables if we need to change any colors. Okay, so let's go to a standard CS and start scoping out. Always the first thing I want to do is I want to use the all selector. I'll just do kind of like a basic reset. So basically margin 0, padding 0, box sizing, border box. I always just find those as a nice way to kind of get things started. Then I'm going to set up my root selector for my initial declaration of variables. So root. So every time I have a variable, I'll declare it here. So we'll just say main color as one variable. We'll just say red for now. Okay. And yeah, we'll save that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna style the button tag first. So basically what I'm doing is I'm styling each tag, not necessarily styling. I could create some utility classes, but I'm gonna kind of take that sort of milligram CSS style where we're just styling the elements right off the bat. So button, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our index.html and create a button so we can see it. Button, hello. And let's open this up in Live Server so we can see it. So there's the button. Okay, that's an ugly button. Let's make it nicer. Okay, so I'm gonna go to style standard.css, and we're gonna say font size. First, we'll make the font size a little bit bigger. So we'll say larger. Let's see what that did. So there, see the font's a little bit bigger. Good. And what I may want to do, okay, is actually make a variable out of this. So button font size. Okay. Then I just go, so button font size will equal right now larger. Okay. And then so because we do it all variables, and those variables can be overridden in our child style sheet. So I can always use this as my basis, and then instead of redoing styles, I can just change the variable values. Because when it reads that second style sheet, if you have variables with the same name, it's going to override the previous ones. So var button font size. So it's just a matter of remembering what your variables are, and you're good. Okay, so if I do that, I should still be good. Okay. Let's do color. So I want the font color to be white. So we'll say I'll just keep them all kind of the same button font color white. So var button font color. Okay. button padding. Okay, and we'll say that's 5 pixels. Okay, so then we'll say padding var button padding. There. Let's see how that's looking. Okay, we need to change the background color on that. Actually, I'll use the main color for that. Well, maybe not. Button BG color. We'll say navy. Background color. Button BG color. There we go. See, we're trying to get something kind of nice. Okay. And then we'll say border radius. Again, this I probably want to have some sort of more global border radius variable radius, so that way all my corners are kind of the same color, the same size. So let's say 10 pixels. And there you go. You have like a nice little button now. Okay, cool. And you could do this with like every single type of element. You would just sit there and just build out this sheet until you kind of get it the way you want. So now, but I can override it in my style.css because I can just redefine the variables. So if I were to go here, create another root element, and we redefine one of these variables. So let's say, let's change the button BG color. I can just go here and say button BG color, and then we'll make it orange. Let's see what happens. See, now the button changes to orange. The reason being is that the way the HTML file is read is that this style sheet gets read first, and then this style sheet gets read second. So any variables of the same name override the previous definitions. So this allows me to kind of have all my defaults in here, and I can just override the variables. I don't have to create whole new styles per se, as long as I know what the variables are. And this allows you to kind of create your own custom template that's easily moldable. Okay, so that way it doesn't have to look exactly the same every time, but you can kind of have your unique style kind of already ingrained. Like you already have sort of your basic, the stuff that you always do in your standard.css. And if you reuse this from project to project, you'll kind of start memorizing the variables. You just always just load the CSS file with your style.css for that project. So think standard, that is your framework that you always have. Okay, and then style will be all your specific stuff. So just always define every single property with the variable. And then, you know, probably you want to use comments to break these up. Again, this is like global vars. Okay, and then here we'll have button var. So that way when you go back and look at this, it's easy to kind of read what you did when the time comes. So button bars. And then let's say we want to do like a input vars. Let's do an input tag. So let's see here. Input. Then I'll go back to my HTML and use this initial HTML just as a one to kind of test how everything looks like. So input type equals text. And let's create a couple of the versions of these. Type equals text. Number. Checkbox. Okay, so we see those there. Okay, and then we go to the standard, and we'll say, again, font size. Let's create a variable for that. So input font size, we'll say, is also going to be large. Okay. Input BG color will probably also be navy. Okay, and input font color will be white again. Okay, and so once I see like certain ones are repeating, I may want to make those global. I'll let you make that call. Okay, which just means, you know, if you just have one global variable, then all you have to do is override that one to make lots of changes. But again, then you can't make individual changes. So you can decide sort of how flexible, how not flexible you want it. Okay, but the idea is you only have to do these design considerations once. You get it exactly the way you want it, and then you make it fairly tweakable as needed. Okay. So let's say that. Let's just do this. Font size. Input font size. Color. Input font color. Background color. Input BG color. Let's see how these are looking like. Okay. The checkbox will get styled once it's clicked, so that's nice. Okay. So then you can just build everything out, have it all ready to go. And yeah, that's kind of how you can build your own CSS framework. Just work your way down all the sort of more visible elements, buttons, input form tags, field sets. Just you know, get everything the way you like it, and then yeah, you are good to go. And what you can do is you can also create like some utility classes, like container. Who doesn't always need container? Container's always kind of like the same deal. Okay, display. Generally always going to be flex. But then the rest of the stuff might be variables. So you can sit there and create some variables for a container. Okay. Container vars. Okay, so you can be like container wrap, which will default to wrap. Container other things I want to say, justify content, or justify will be justify, space around. Okay, container width. Okay, would be, say, 80% of the screen size, but then container margin is going to center it. Container margin, we'll say 10 pixels. Auto. Okay, and then, you know, start feeding those in there. Width. Container width. Margin. Container margin. Flex wrap. Container wrap. Justify content. Container justify. Okay, so now if I wrap this in the container, so I say div class equals container. Okay, Control C, do something like that. Let's take a look at the results. Okay, you see this is kind of a little bit more treating each of these as like a element, and it's doing space between because they're in the flex box. Yeah, so you can just set up basic stuff. So it'll take some time. You're talking about maybe like a day's worth of work, but you set this up, it'll save you so much time in the future and give you a tool that really allows you to replicate your unique style over and over again consistently from project to project, yet give you flexibility to mold it project to project because you have those variables. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.